Peace, and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. First, let's talk about former President Donald Trump. It's urging the United States Supreme Court to not intervene quickly on this election immunity case that they are going to have to review. We're going to talk a little bit about the latest from that and the impact of that. Plus, we're throwing in the fact that Rudy Giuliani, former mayor of New York City, has now filed for bankruptcy. What happens to that $146 million that he is ordered to pay those two black election workers? We'll be checking in with my sister Suzette Speaks to get the latest on that. Also, can we talk about New York City has passed a bill to ban solitary confinement in city jails. What does that do for the larger human rights movement that we see in this country? Later on, we'll talk about how one Florida school is receiving backlash from the NAACP over a 2-year-old being in a Rosa Parks skit. I'm going to share with you the details of that. And Taraji P. Henson has considered quitting because of a pay disparity. She has an emotional breakdown as she talks about the struggles of black actors and actresses and getting paid their worth. So we'll have that conversation. Stay with us. It's all happening on today's Condition of the Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Oh my gosh, we are streaming on a number of platforms. A big shout out to my online culture crew that's gathering in the chat right now on Roland Martin's YouTube page. And folks, there we go. Folks, you could join us in the same way. Make sure you just jump on Roland Martin's YouTube page. And we're also streaming on Roland Martin's Facebook page. And being a part of, and just jump into the chat, be a part of the conversation. And we're going to do our due diligence to make sure we get as many of your comments as possible for these very, very hot topics. Now, we're also streaming on our home network of blackstarnetwork.com. So you can go to our website today, download the app for free on all of your devices. Also follow us on social media. And you know what I'm about to say, we need your financial support. And especially this time of year, this is a great time of year to do some investing, because that's what you're doing with Black Star Network. You're not just talking about, oh, let me just pay for a fee for a subscription service. You are investing in a digital movement that black content can be streamed live, unadulterated, unfiltered, like Roland Martin, and unapologetically black. So make sure you go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. Also follow us on Amazon platforms, on your Amazon TV, on Amazon Fire TV. You can find us there, as well as Amazon Prime Video. Just go to our Prime Video app under Live TV, the news, and then find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video. Also, you can find us on Freevee. On the Freevee network, you can find us under On Now under News, and we're on Plex TV 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just search for Black Star Network or find us under Live TV, the news, and opinion. All right, folks, let's get into the conversation as we got a lot to talk about. And today is Thursday. But I'm joined by my sister Suzette Speaks, who is the host of the Suzette Speaks show on YouTube. She's also a licensed attorney in the state of Florida, political strategist. Suzette, I was hoping to see you this week because so much is happening.
Hey, Farajii, I'm so happy to be here. Happy holidays to everybody celebrating.
Absolutely.
And it's good to be with you.
You too. There we go. A little something for Suzette. Let's jump right into this, Suzette, because we got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, I'm going to start with former President Donald Trump, and then we'll get to his associates in a minute. But, well, let's do the other way. Let's do a little easier. Let's start with Rudy Giuliani. He has officially filed bankruptcy. We already know, we talked about this on the show, that he had lost that defamation case against those two black Georgia election workers. They were expecting $47 million. The judge ordered Giuliani to pay $146 million because he defamed their character and took them through a horrendous experience as being election workers. And as you mentioned, I'll never forget you saying this, is that he was on the courthouse steps still defaming them. while the case was going on. So I guess they just wanted to put in a little extra something for that. But he has now officially filed for bankruptcy. What does that do for that $146 million settlement that the judge ordered? Who pays for that? How does that work, Suzette?
The answer is we're gonna have to wait and see, Farajii, because it looks like Mr. Giuliani doesn't have the coins to come up with 145 million. As you said, 75 million of which is punitive, really just to send a message of what his defamatory language and all of the accusatory statements he made since the two ladies who served so dutifully in the state of Georgia to count their ballots there, voluntarily doing so, suffered, great damage to their reputations, to their lives as a result of everything he said. So as you pointed out, he, not surprisingly, less than a week after the verdict, has now filed for bankruptcy. So what does that mean? That means he is trying to avoid paying what is due. And of course, the court had just put in extra documentation, or I think it was the defendants who had requested that he be made to pay it speedily. And they were even seeking an additional injunction because he's still spewing lies, right? Untruths about them, even after the verdict. So they were actually looking to file extra court injunctions against Mr. Giuliani to make sure that he is barred from making any statements going further into, this black hole of lies that he's created around these two innocent ladies. So what we may see, Farajii, is that he's going to say that he doesn't have the assets, obviously the money to pay up. They're probably one of several creditors. If we remember, Mr. Trump himself owes Mr. Giuliani. It's alleged that he has not been paid by Mr. Trump. Some of the figures that are alleged are as much as $10 million. And unfortunately, it's going to delay justice being served and these ladies getting the money that they are now court ordered to receive from Mr. Giuliani. So it's a tactic to basically keep him from paying them.
So that debt wouldn't be transferred to the government. This is a federal case. The government wouldn't pick up the slack, and essentially he would pay the government back.
No, unfortunately, this is individuals suing other individuals, right? So civil liability. He wasn't working in his capacity as someone who was an attorney. Again, he was a private attorney for Trump, but he didn't have any role in the government in terms of why he did what he did. So he wasn't serving in an office at the time. So no, it wouldn't be kind of like a police officer, unfortunately, who was doing something that they shouldn't be doing, and they're sued, and the city is sued. Taxpayers would be on the hook. Not in this case. This is personal liability. So this was we're not surprised by this step because it seems like he was all talk, all bluster, right, and no bank, right. So unfortunately, he's going to try to get out of it, as many of us who have been observing him over the years, we're not too surprised. But yeah, it's going to basically put things on hold. We're at a standstill until we see where the bankruptcy leads us.
And let me ask you another, and Robin Welch checking in. Robin, good afternoon. Robin asks, what about his assets? How does that go? Does that just kind of all get swept under the bankruptcy as well? And it's just...
Well, assets have to be accounted for. So basically the bankruptcy court will appoint somebody to do kind of like a forensic accounting of what he owns, right? Properties, cars, bank accounts, and other creditors, people who he owes. So after they do that kind of accounting and totaling up actually what he's actually worth, then there's a whole procedure that goes to like secondary, primary, first place creditors, who those folks are, secondary creditors, tertiary creditors. So kind of people get paid in order, depending on how much his assets are valued. But because he claimed bankruptcy or he's filing for bankruptcy, he has as much as 145 million, but we don't know, right? We have to wait and see. And this is his way of trying to delay the process yet again.
And my final question, I know we got to take a quick pause, but I'm just wondering, when we see cases like this, or any case like this, right? The sisters were asking for 47 million, right? But the judge ballooned it to over 140 million. So my thinking is, why did the judge make it such a large amount, knowing that the person may not even have the money to cover that. How, you know, can you give us some insight into that?
Well,
you know,
yeah, damages are not based on what you're able to pay. Damages are trying to make the person whole, or send a public interest message to others, or are for like the emotional damage, the loss of income, et cetera, et cetera. So there's no bearing given to what a person actually may be worth, right? Their net worth is not given any kind of consideration in that. The jury, the judge, they are looking strictly at what evidence has shown this possibly has caused to that life, the change, the you know, again, lack of income is one thing, emotional distress is another thing, but we also have a category in damages called punitive, right? So it is very much a scale of what a judge or jury thinks is going to send a message, is kind of a light way of putting it, but to deter that person or the public from doing that kind of behavior ever again. So we used to see damages like this, and like what I do, personal injury, in years gone by, in the millions. It used to be like that for like tobacco and other things that we saw that caused, you know, irreparable harms to people's bodies, knowingly so, etc. But that's a part of how damages are determined in our system. But it doesn't have any bearing in terms of what he can afford to pay. Not at all.
Wow, there it is. There it is. Wow, we're going to have to see how this situation plays out. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk a little bit about now Mr. Giuliani's supervisor, his boss, former President Donald Trump, as we talk a little bit about the two big cases and the two big issues that are facing the Supreme Court relating to the former president, and how this case around election immunity, the election interference case, and how President Trump is trying to hold off the Supreme Court from making a decision, even reviewing the case, until, guess what? Until the election time, until he thinks he's going to become president. Very interesting situation. We're going to get Suzette takes on it, as well as I'm going to open it up to y'all. So crew, post your comments as we're streaming live on Roland Martin's YouTube page. We're streaming live on Roland Martin's Facebook page. And of course, stay with us. We're just getting started here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. We are checking in with my sister, Suzette Speaks, attorney and host, TV host. She's host of the Suzette Speaks Show. Make sure y'all check her out on YouTube. Make sure y'all follow her on social media. Make sure y'all support her on all platforms, Pantheon, and everywhere else you can find Suzette Speaks, because she's always doing something that's good for the culture. Now, today, we're talking about, we just talked about Rudy Giuliani. Let's talk about his boss, former President Donald Trump, who is actually probably in more legal trouble than he has been in a very, very long time. And I know that he got those 91 indictments and all of those things happening. But the fact is, 91 charges and 4 indictments. But the fact is, he's looking at Supreme Court now. And this is going to be an interesting situation just because the people that are on the Supreme Court I know they probably never thought that they would come where they have to prosecute, or they may have to make the decision about the man who put them there.
Or did they?
Woo,
We played a short game. They played a long game, Farajii. They played a long game, sir.
They play. Love it already. Love it already. All right, so let's talk about this. There are a couple of things here. One is the election interference case. President Trump and his legal team mentioned that they are trying to hold off, they're trying to convince the Supreme Court to not move forward on making any type of decision quickly in regards to his election interference case, basically trying to uphold this premise that he has somewhat immunity from certain things. But this is very interesting. Let me just share some of the latest reports around this. This is coming from NBC News. Take a look at this, folks. Trump's lawyer, led by Missouri Solicitor General Dean John Sauer, argued in the filing that Smith, talking about Jack Smith, has given no compelling reason why the Supreme Court should immediately step in without waiting for the appeals court to act. Now, Smith, Sauer wrote, confuses the public interest with the manifest partisan interest in ensuring that President Trump will be subjected to a months-long criminal trial at the height of a presidential campaign where he is the leading candidate and the only serious opponent of the current administration. Now, this is coming out, Suzette, just to give folks some context. This is coming out because Mr. Jack Smith, the counsel, the lawyer for the government, is saying, look, this man cannot move forward in doing anything else. The Supreme Court has to make a decision about making sure that he doesn't become an impediment in the long term. And so Mr. Smith has been trying to convince the court to go that way. Now Trump's lawyers are saying, please don't go that way, wait till after the election. It's a lot of legal stuff, so I'm going to leave it in your hands from this point.
So, okay, we know we have several different cases involving the former president. And one of them is with Jack Smith, who, again, just to back up so everybody's on the same page, special counsel that was appointed by Attorney General Merrick Garland, right, who said, I want you to look into this possibility of the former president being involved through the actions taken on and before and leading up to January 6th as possibly trying to, in some way, lead and encourage others to impede the transition of an election, and that in fact is illegal. So we have Jack Smith, who has been very diligent in an investigation, has decided to bring these charges that you just spoke about in the Washington, D.C. court. And normally when we see these cases, there are 3 levels, both in state court and in federal court. Remember, federal is U.S. government courts, right? Those are based on legislation passed by Congress, right? Federal charges. And then each of our 50 states have 50 different judicial systems, right? Where they have court systems, usually that have 3 tiers: a lower level court, a middle level appellate court or appeals court, and then the highest level of that state, the Supreme Court. And of course, we have the highest level of the federal government, the United States Supreme Court, right? So in this case where President Trump is, what he's saying basically is, we talked about it here last week, where we were saying that Jack Smith has now asked to skip from the district court, the lower level court, from there all the way to the Supreme Court, and not go to the Court of Appeals, the middle level court. He's saying this matter is of such importance that we need a decision now, Supremes, as I call them, United States Supreme Court. Please let us know whether or not the main question is a former president can be held criminally liable for action he took while in office, right? And that he says, or Jack Smith's contention is, was illegal, was in fact criminal. So Trump's lawyers, obviously, Jack Smith is preempting, right? Kind of predicting what they're going to argue. He was president at the time. He was doing his job. He cannot be held liable. So on this critical question, Jack Smith is saying, Supreme Court, please, and we talked about the brief, he filed a motion, and of course, Trump's team filed an opposition pleading to say, no court, and this is what we're talking about today, this is not right. Slow it down. Take it at the regular pace. Go through the system just the way anyone else would, from the lower court, which we've had a ruling, then to the appellate court, the middle tier, and then to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court, you shouldn't be taking this up now. Why does Trump's team want that done? Delay only helps Donald Trump. Why? Because we are in an election year, and Jack Smith has set down a March 4th trial date. Right? He's trying to get all of this sorted out before we even get to trial. So y'all don't try to dismiss this case. I want to know from the Supremes, if it's grounds that he cannot be prosecuted because of his role as a former president, then tell me now. Or go ahead and let me know that everybody is subject to the law of the land, whether they were president or not at the time. If their behavior violated the law, they should be prosecuted. So that's the question at hand. But again, delay in most criminal cases helps the defendant. So Trump doesn't want to see the March 4th trial schedule begin and proceed, because what do we have going on? We have the Iowa caucuses. We have all the other primaries and caucuses that are coming up. So Jack Smith's schedule is to start it on March 4th, and maybe it'll take 3-4 months, and we'll have a possible, if his timeline holds, some kind of adjudication, some kind of verdict, if you will, by maybe July. And that will have a large implication on what happens as to his opportunity to be president or run for president. Now, what the Trump team, the quiet part they can't say out loud, is that if they delay, they most likely, if he is successful at his run for president again, will have the opportunity, if they can push it out past election day, to have him be able to, possibly, we've never seen it done in the history of our country before, pardon himself, to remove the attorney general.
That's crazy.
Or to have him or her dismiss these cases altogether, get rid of the special prosecutor. That's what he's trying to hold on to hope for. And I'll say that it contrasts what the same legal team will be arguing in Colorado. Real quick, Brother Roland has covered it extensively. The Colorado Supreme Court, again, went through their levels, and state of Colorado said that Trump is in fact guilty of or can be held as being found as a matter of law, having participated in insurrection. And they're using Section 3 of the 14th Amendment that was written right after the Civil War, that stated that anybody who participates in an insurrection or aids and abets anybody therein cannot run for our presidency or for positions in the government. So he is going to probably tell the Colorado court, or his legal team will argue, we need y'all to speed up, right, Supreme Court, and take that up, because the Colorado Supreme Court has basically taken me off their ballot. And he's going to want them to hear that quickly so he can be replaced on the ballot. But in the Jack Smith case, the January 6th case, he's going to argue the very opposite, because delay helps him. It keeps him on the ballot. It keeps him from getting to probably a final outcome that he may not believe will be favorable. And he's going to say, please follow the normal pace that any other defendant in the system, in the federal system, would follow, which would be go to the lower court, the U.S. District Court, then to the Court of Appeals, and then go to the Supremes. Don't skip ahead. That's what his team is arguing.
I got to take a quick pause. This is crazy. And I know, Tiz, you checked in. You said, Farajii, nothing is crazy in this system. They created this system. I know, Tiz, but I mean, did y'all just hear what Suzette said? In one case, he's trying to quicken the pace. In another case, he's trying to delay. Like, this dude does not want to take accountability, not even thinking about the fact that he's using dog whistles and Hitler language to get people to ride with him on this idea that he's putting out. I mean, this thing is crazy. Now, I got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we'll continue to talk about this, get some of your take on this. But I got to say something when we come back that I think we just need to keep this in mind, because I feel like it may be coming down the pike. And so I'm going to share with you just some of my thoughts as we see this whole ordeal unfold. Stay with us, folks. You're tuned into The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Your money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. We've been talking to my sister, Suzette Speaks, as we talk about former President Donald Trump and his legal woes. First, we're talking about the fact that his legal team is actually trying to delay any type of consideration or review or decision from the Supreme Court about his involvement in the January 6th situation, the election interference case, and that he stands on business, Suzette, that he's immune.
He's saying that he's a prosecutor. He can't be prosecuted at all. But if you are going to, slow it down, please don't take this case right now, Supreme Court. This is not an urgent matter. And he's arguing that Jack Smith, the prosecutor, is saying, this is a public interest and that, it's purely political. Instead, there's no real reason this should be expedited up the ladder to the Supreme Court. So, yes, he's making a number of arguments and hoping that they stick. Yes.
But then on the flip side, as you so eloquently laid out, for the case of Colorado, where he's disqualified from the ballot because of the 14th Amendment, and how they say, well, he was involved in an insurrection. He's like, well, I'm going to appeal that. Y'all need to quicken the pace on that.
Yes.
So we're saying that you
take it now, please.
It's absolutely insane. All right, let me just take a couple of comments from the crew here. So Cindy D, my sister Cindy, thank you so much for checking in. You checked in and you said, if they rule that Trump can do what he wants and upholds the Colorado ruling, doesn't that take the power away from Supreme Court and Biden, then can do what he wants as president?
Well, the Jack Smith case, I think, is what will drill down on that, Cindy. It's a question of whether the president is above the law and whether a president is really like a king and can do anything in office and can never be held accountable for it. That's really the question. So when you pose it like that, I understand the sentiment. The Colorado case is more saying that, as a matter of fact, we looked at the evidence. The trial court, that first bottom layer, heard all the evidence. They listened to people who were involved in January 6th in the Colorado case. They got the evidence and the testimony from people firsthand and made a ruling that said, no, this guy was involved in an insurrection or a direct attempt to overthrow the United States election and to impede the peaceful transfer of power, and was trying to encourage others to do so too, that he basically led the folks on January 6th. So as a matter of law, fact finding, right? The judge listening to all kinds of testimony and seeing, what was fact, what could be corroborated, where the what can I say, the believability of the witnesses were, right? The credibility of the witnesses were. They went through all that in Colorado, and the first court said yay, second court said nay, and then the Supreme Court says no, he is in fact guilty, and therefore saying guilty meaning that he has been found to have been involved in an insurrection under the 14th Amendment, Section 3, and therefore cannot be by law allowed to be on the ballot. That's kind of, I want to make sure I kind of give you the legalese into the legal weeds a little bit as to what they're really finding. They're not worried about whether he's involved or not. That's not what that case is about. It's whether or not he should be on the ballot, as he may have violated the 14th Amendment. And they find that he's in violation, so he shouldn't be on the ballot.
All right. So for the immunity for the election interference case, the other case that Jack Smith is spearheading, Willie Frazier says, Suzette, is it possible that the Supreme Court would weigh in on him leading the insurrection in their opinions?
No, I think it's a finer point than that. Again, they're looking at, or Jack Smith submitted this request to say that we believe that Trump's legal defense will include that he, as president, or behaviors that he undertook within his role while he was serving us, cannot be lawfully prosecuted, right? It can't be seen as criminal thereafter. So just based on that question, it's not regarding the Supremes. I think they might eventually get to the question, because remember the 14th Amendment cases, there are states that have said he's allowed to be on the ballot. And there are several others like Colorado, I think about 14 more, that are going to use the Colorado example and try to file the same procedures in their states to keep Mr. Trump off the ballot under the United States Constitution, 14th Amendment, Section 3. So that side of it, I think the Supremes may eventually have to weigh in on what Willie Frazier has asked. Does his behavior while serving as president leading up to January 6th show that he was in violation of the 14th Amendment by being involved in an insurrection, right? An overthrow, possible overthrow of our government. And that case will, I think, lead to that answer. But the one that is right in front of them right now to be considered as to whether they're hearing arguments as to whether they should take and expedite Jack Smith's case is not about whether he is found innocent or guilty by the Supreme Court in that case. It's just as to whether or not he can be held culpable for behaviors that took place, or that his conduct while serving as president. It's a finer point than what I think Willie Frazier has pointed out. I think the Colorado is being appealed is more like that answer, which is what he's pointing out there.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk a little bit about this letter that was addressed to Judge John Roberts on the Supreme Court from Senator Richard Blumenthal, the Democrat out of Connecticut, who sits on the Senate Judiciary Committee, to force Clarence Thomas to be recused from this Trump case. What do you make of that, Suzette?
Oh, Mr. Thomas, the most senior justice on this now very conservative court. We got to remember the decisions that we've been seeing recently have been 6-3, right? There are 9 United States Supreme Court justices. Several, as you pointed out now, have been appointed by Mr. Trump. And so we are seeing an outcome oftentimes that the conservative wing, as they're, categorized just by their, written opinions in the last few major cases, seems to be trending one way. Now, to Supreme Court Justice Thomas, there are so many parts of where there has been so much questionable behavior. I'm trying to pick my words very carefully.
Right. I hear you.
So much questionable behavior on behalf of Senior Justice Clarence Thomas that I understand why Senator Blumenthal is now raising this as a question. Do I really think Justice Thomas will recuse himself? I don't think so. At this moment, I don't know what else will come out. At this moment, even if it looks like it's improper, the relationship with his wife and the Trump campaign. I mean, there's evidence that, she called people directly, connected to the former president during the insurrection, et cetera, but they have always maintained that allegedly they are separate when it comes to politics. Supreme Court Justice Thomas does not talk to one Ginny Thomas, his wife, about her politics, and she's remained very active and openly so in terms of conservative causes. So I would just venture to say, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think he will be made to recuse, but I do think it's important that if, other co-equal branches of government feel like there is something that is wrong, or, people are not living up to their oaths, to the American people, to the Constitution, that you can bring this forward. So it'll be interesting to see if there's other evidence of what can I call it, conflict of interest that would require him to recuse himself. But as of right now, just kind of my general assessment, I don't think he will.
All right, look, we got to take another pause. When we come back, I'm going to respond to what you just laid out, Suzette, because...
Okay.
Not to say that, no, you're breaking this down for us. So it's not about your analysis and your legal breakdown. It's not about that. It's just about how America crazy this whole situation really is. I'm gonna just throw it out there. On the other side, look, folks, stay with us. We're still talking Trump. We're still talking Supreme Court. We're really talking about justice and what does that do as it relates to democracy in this country. Folks, stay with us. The conversation continues on the other side with Suzette Speaks and you right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my sister Suzette Speaks as we talk about the legal woes and the implications of President Trump's legal issues, from election interference to him being disqualified from the first state, Colorado. He's being disqualified from the ballot, and what impact that will make. Now, here's my take on this very quickly, Suzette, because this is, to me, this sets up this whole narrative that Trump is democracy's boogeyman, right? And I don't think that we should be caught up on that. And I'm talking about as Black folks in this country, right? Like, he's democracy's boogeyman. At this point, the stuff that he is engaged in, the legal issues that he is embroiled in, this is stuff that is just on him. My concern is the people that he has affected with the philosophy that we saw just the other night, where he talks about poisoning the blood of the American people. Like, this thinking is much more, I would say, much more of a threat than this one man as Trump, right? I think the Trumpism politics is much more of an issue than Donald Trump itself. He has done, I think, his part to shape the conversation, whether it's from what's going on inside the GOP or what threat that he poses to democracy in general. But I don't think he's like, I feel like this is a dog and pony show. Now, from your political strategist view, right, what do you make of that? Do you feel like that this is just a bunch, because this is a circus act. This is a circus act. Either the GOP is going to put him as the front runner or keep him as the front runner or not. Now, even though he might be ahead in some polls, I saw in the state of Iowa that he was ahead in some polls in double digits in some areas. The fact remains that he's still a criminal. You got to keep at the root of all of this stuff. He's still a criminal. And does the GOP want to take that risk of propping up a criminal with all of these issues, setting up all of these ethical conflicts within the court system, setting up all of this stuff? Like, he's a liability. But, you know, if we get caught up in, if we get Trump, the democracy is going to get better, I feel like that's a very, very, like, wrong direction that for us to take. Am I crazy in thinking this?
No, but it comes down to what voters feel Mr. Trump either offers or does not offer. And as you stated, he is still leading when it comes to the Republican Party's most reliable primary voters, right? The people who show up most often. And when they're asked, who do they support? We still see more than double his opponents, you know, the next closest opponent or even all of the other ones added up together. He still has the support of not all the American people, but that base within the Republican Party that votes reliably. Again, for many of us, maybe standing on the outside of that base, it seems shocking. Right. And I would like to clarify, I just would like to say Mr. Trump is innocent until proven guilty, although he has been found liable in some civil, cases. Right. He has criminal cases that are pending. So to say that he's criminal, again, that might be a term of art in the case that, how you're using it, but as a matter of law, on the criminal side, he has not been found guilty as of this broadcast, right? So when we're looking at what voters think, you are seeing some of the sentiment that you are expressing, which is a Republican primary voter, right? When they sit down with Iowans and people who are most likely to caucus for him, again, they have a caucus system where they sit in groups, right? And you stand up and you say who you're going to support within that small group, within the caucuses. You see people that say he is a distraction. You do have those who are like, if his legal woes are not going to give him the ability to focus on what the country needs, why would we support him? Now, you don't have, again, a majority with that sentiment, but I'm hearing a lot more when you see the one-on-one interviews in New Hampshire, where Nikki Haley has been gaining support. She was endorsed by Governor Sununu there, and there's been, a little bit of a closure, not much, but of the gap. It's going to take something like a conviction that, again, many would argue strategically Trump could use, which he's now, already doing, to say, look, I am being unfairly targeted, right? It plays right into what he's been telling his base all along, which is that the system is rigged against me. I am you. I am not being treated fairly. I am being targeted by, political enemies. And just like you, I have to, fight the powers that be, right? The system.
Right. Right.
It is kind of false trope and false comparison, but there are people who really believe it, and no matter what he does, will still be in his corner. But the point I see you kind of making is whether there will be like a turn in that sentiment. I don't know how much more Republicans will try to push against him, because even as he was taken off the ballot in Colorado, most of the opponents, his front runner opponents, Vivek Ramaswamy, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, all came to his defense and was like, no, that's so wrong for him to be taken off the ballot. It should be done by voters. Even Chris Christie, who is one of his most vocal critics, has said he doesn't believe he should be taken off by a court. It only should be by voters. That's his sentiment in the statement since the Colorado decision. So I hear what you're saying. It does not make political sense. There are some Democrats, again, in Florida, we've been having conversations here about what should we be filing this type of case in Florida to see if he can, get off of the ballot or be taken off the ballot as a matter of law by the 14th Amendment. Now, we have a conservative state Supreme Court, right? Very conservative, appointed mostly by Mr. DeSantis. But I was thinking about it. I was like, some strategists might actually think it's important that he's on the ballot to give people a reason to vote, in the opposite way. So there are many ways of looking at this, but I do think for right now, his message to his base is still resonating very loudly, which is they're after Trump. They, the fixes, and they want to take me out. I'm the victim of an illegal system. Like I told you what happened on January 6th, right? They stole it from us and they still trying to steal us. Look, they're taking me off the ballot here. It really plays into his narrative. And again, the miseducation that has been going on since January 6th, there is a group of people in our country that are literally so misinformed and misguided and don't know the truth, right? Remember, Trump's social media is called Truth Social.
Yeah.
The comments he makes, and now he's on a rapid pace throwing it out there, they're not the truth, right? It's propaganda. So we have to be very careful. He's good at manipulating, I think, the media machine, because the more crazy stuff he says, the more he gets coverage, and the more he gets coverage, the more it feeds into, his popularity, and again, confirming what his base already believes. But we got to call it out. Like you said, the dog whistle, I don't know if it captures fully like the despicable, insidious nature of what he's saying about the purity of American blood. When he talks about immigrants, and we know who he's talking about. He's talking about our brothers and sisters from Central America, from South America, from the Caribbean. and how it will pollute our blood. That is the most sickening, just, oh my gosh, maniacal and very dangerous rhetoric we've seen by autocrats and dictators of the past. But there's a formula he's following. I've been watching a lot of documentaries, Farajii. If you read Rachel Maddow's book, there's some very good books out right now just talking about, we've seen this playbook already. He's not invented anything new, right? When we saw
no.
World War II, we heard a lot of the same rhetoric. There's a big problem. And see, they've broken the rules already. So you need a strong man to come in and break the rules already. But I'm not breaking the rules. I'm just breaking them on your behalf because we got to take back our system from those who broke it in the first place. There's a rhyme and reason to what he's saying because it has already been used before in other governments across our globe. This is not new. So we have to be very careful to counteract and call out what he's saying and how dangerous and how anti-American, anti-democratic, all the stuff that he's saying that are being used against him, or tools that are now being used against him that are undemocratic, sir. You have to be very careful with him because he likes to, take away the truth and then spin it in a direction that is not accurate, right? So we have to do our job. But there is people in his base that's not moving, Farajii, and this is actually strengthening him.
And honestly, as we take our next pause, I'm not surprised. I'm not expecting to move the needle a lot. You only need to move the needle a little bit. You know what I'm saying? We could talk about those 74 or 75 million people that voted for him the last time. But this is a different America, just even over the past 4 years. Things have certainly changed in this country. And I think that a lot of people will wake up from this delusion that, and I'm talking about Trump voters, I think they'll wake up from some of them, not all of them. Some of them are going to say, look, man, this thing is getting too wild. This guy is such a liability. But again, look, he's going to do what he's going to do. I think for Black America, we don't need to be caught up in the affairs of this guy so much that we lose focus on our political interests and what's important for us, and making sure that the current political leaders, while y'all dealing with him, we're going to deal with y'all. You see what I'm saying?
We have to be able to do both. Because we gotta
keep our eyes on it. No. We gotta keep our eyes on it. But I don't want us to get caught up in that situation of the Trump circus and dog and pony show, right? And we losing sight, like we're putting our hope, like, oh, please don't put him in here. But at the same time, we're not working to try to either keep the fire under the feet of current political leaders, or we're not advocating for some policy that's going to speak to our condition. You know what I'm saying? We can keep our eyes on the situation, but right now the GOP is in a disarray. And since most of us are not in the GOP, we're in the Democratic Party, or we're in the independent space, then we got some other things that we don't let y'all deal with that dog, and we're gonna keep our eyes on it. But at the same time, we're gonna keep our eyes on the prize and what's in front of us. So that's all I'm saying. I just don't want people to be like, yo, if we get rid of Trump, if he goes down, democracy gets better. And that may not, I don't see that being the case. I don't see that being the case. It might help, but now you got to deal with all of the other people that come that's going to carry the water for his philosophy. That's the destructive part, because you don't need Trump. It's just like with us as Black people in this country, we don't need white people in our neighborhoods and in our heads if we're still killing each other the way we're killing each other, if we're still harming each other, if we're not working on behalf of each other. And I'm just saying that the remnants of a philosophy I think is much stronger than the characteristics of a personality. So that's all. I'm just making that point. But look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's switch gears. Let's talk about what's happening in the city of New York, how they have decided to move forward on passing a bill, the city council, move forward to pass a bill to ban solitary confinement. Some advocates, human rights advocates, prison industrial complex watchers have said that this is a good move in terms of human rights. We want to get your take on this as well. Stay with us. That conversation is up next. Plus, we're also going to talk about Taraji P. Henson And her disparity, her cry for equal pay for Black actors and actresses, a big conversation happening on social media. So stay with us. We got a lot to cover in the second half of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Man, oh man, if you missed the first hour, you missed something fantastic, but it's okay. You could be a part of Team Replay and check us out on blackstarnetwork.com, our home website, and you can download the app for free. Follow us on social media, and also we ask for your financial donations. But that first hour, folks, where our sister Suzette speaks, our great sister, our legal expert here on The Culture, checking in from Florida. She's with us today, not yesterday. She had to take care of some business yesterday.
I did.
But she was here today. So it's always a pleasure. And it's a perfect day to have Suzette on as we're looking at all of these legal conversations. And she is breaking it down so eloquently about what we're seeing and what we can expect over these next few months. Now, again, folks, make sure y'all check us out on blackstarnetwork.com. Now, let's talk a little bit about another big case, a situation out of New York City, where they are now, the city council has moved forward on passing a bill that would essentially eliminate solitary confinement in city jails. This is actually very, very, I would say in some cases revolutionary, especially it's a big win for the human rights movement. As many folks have debated whether solitary confinement is really helpful. Does it truly reform? Does it cause a person to come out of that being from prison in a better mindset. Well, it looks like the city council said, look, we need to take this down a notch and do something different if we're talking about redemption and reform. Take a look at this. Here's the latest report coming from the Associated Press. The bill that they have put forward places a 4-hour limit on isolating inmates who pose an immediate risk of violence to others or themselves in what they call de-escalation units. Only those involved in violent incidents could be placed in longer-term restrictive housing, and they would need to be allowed out of their cells for 14 hours each day and get access to the same programming available to other inmates. Now, take a look at this, folks. According to New York City Public Advocate Juliani Williams, who introduced the legislation about this, he argued yesterday that solitary confinement amounts to torture for those subjected to lengthy hours in isolation in small jail cells. He and other supporters, including prominent members of New York's congressional delegation, have pointed to research showing solitary confinement, even only for a few days, increases the likelihood an inmate will die by suicide, violence, or overdose. It also leads to acute anxiety, depression, psychosis, and other impairments that may reduce an inmate's ability to reintegrate into society when they are released, according to them, to the research. Now, Mr. Williams said, this is about safety at Rikers, referring to New York's infamous Island Jail complex. If we want something different, we need to try something different. Suzanne, is this good? Is this a good policy? Is this good? Is this good for I mentioned that it is considered to be a win for the human rights movement, especially those that are in the prison industrial complex. But what do you make of this? This is good or not?
Well, this is a piece of legislation. There are actually two pieces of legislation coming out of the New York City Council, and I'll give an overview because I learned a lot just doing research on this story about how New York works, right? So most of us who live in a city or some kind of parish or some kind of municipality has a council that helps to run the city. So New York has the same. They have 51 members of a council that are elected by districts, right? And this is key. They hold the same amount of power. They're co-equal branch to the mayor of New York City being Mr. Eric Adams. So this is the first time a mayor who was elected for his policing background and who ran on a platform that said he would be able to decrease crime and help New York City deal with the rise in criminal conduct they were seeing, and was going to be a law and order type mayor. So this is the first time he's being challenged by the city council. Now, in two votes, the first being 35-9 with a few abstentions, people who decided not to vote, and the other vote being 35-7, there were two bills that were introduced. The first one is what you're talking about, which requires a limit to solitary confinement, right? So we have this word solitary confinement, and there are many different words that are used in our prison systems for this. So just so you know, solitary confinement also goes by the euphemisms segregation, secure housing. We might hear them say they're going into the hole on lockdown, and it's routinely used across our country at this time. As you pointed out, in studies done by the United Nations, there has been calls for the United States to stop using solitary confinement for the reasons that you just outlined so well, and that it is a form of psychological torture, many experts say. So the city council, which is led by a woman, Ms. Adrienne Adams, has been pretty much, from what I'm reading, very amicable towards Mr. Adams. But this is the first time they have a veto-proof majority to challenge him, and they've come out very strongly. So the first piece of legislation deals with limiting solitary confinement to 4 hours max at any given time. Now, I hear people in the hole or in lockdown for, as you pointed out, days, even weeks. So this is a huge change for what is one of the largest prison systems in our country. The other part of that first half of the legislation would require that detainees be outside of their cells for 14 hours a day. So I said, whoa, okay, that's very interesting. So they're really considering the mental health of what they perceive to be biggest challenges of our prison industrial complex. Now, Mayor Adams has come out quite strongly against this, and being that he says, obviously having served in uniform, saying that this is the worst thing that could happen because it is limiting the ability for, as he puts it, and I'm paraphrasing, agencies, police officers, and individuals in the law enforcement community to do what they need to do to keep even other inmates safe from one another if they're not allowed to keep them in prolonged solitary confinement. The second piece of legislation that they put forward is one that requires increased reporting for low-level interactions by NYPD, New York Police Department staff with the public. Now, what does this second piece do? Now, we know New York has had under, we just called his name, former Mayor Giuliani, a history of what was harassment in fact by law enforcement under the stop and frisk policy of the past. We're talking 2013, years gone by, and how Black and brown communities felt literally under attack by the people that they were called upon, that were called upon to serve them, and how this created a very hostile environment between law enforcement and the public. Nonetheless, this second part of the bill basically wants any interaction, any low-level, small interaction between any New York police officer with the public to be documented. It increases the documenting requirement by any law enforcement officer, whether they stop in to say hello, goodbye, checking on you, wanted to see what your, where's your bike license, whatever it is, that they would now be required to document that. And Mayor Adams also opposes this second piece of legislation, saying that, and I'm paraphrasing again his quotes, where it would be something to the effect of, we, want our police to do their job and be on the beat and not be worried about paperwork, etc. So this is the first time that he's really been challenged on this platform that he ran on and on his record. The correctional office, officer union obviously stands with the mayor, and he stands with them, saying that this is going to severely diminish their ability to do their jobs well. And but again, they have a veto-proof majority where if he, like he promised to, vetoes this bill, it can go back to the legislative body, the city council, and if they get enough votes, they will override the veto and become law. So this is a huge swing in a new direction from
it's a big direction
it has been. And it is literally, New York City is a bellwether. It is really kind of, ground zero. If a change like this is going to happen and it works, if it ultimately passes and holds and override, to the veto, the mayor saying he's against it, they're saying it for it, he vetoes it, but it can go back to them. That's our last check and balance, right? It goes back to the council and they can vote on it again. And with a supermajority, it can pass. So this will be an amazing change, right? And corrections and the strategies used, and it will be turning the system on its head, really. And that's why a lot of people are really nervous about it.
Absolutely. We got to take another quick pause. When we come back, let's give some more context, because along with the human rights element of this whole situation, there are two other things that we got to keep in mind. One is that the city of Rikers facility is looking at a possible federal takeover. So that's one issue. And then the second thing is that as a result of the case of 16-year-old Khalif Browder, who spent 3 years in Rikers, half of that time was spent in solitary confinement, 16 years old, folks, for a trial. He was sent to solitary confinement to await a trial that never happened. He was freed, but he killed himself at age 22. And so his case has led the city to eventually end the use of solitary confinement for 16 and 17-year-olds. So there are a lot of layers to this conversation. Folks, we got to take another quick pause. When we come back, more discussion with Suzette. And I want to hear from you. Post your comments in the chat as we're streaming live on Roland Martin's Facebook page and, of course, on Roland Martin's YouTube page. And continue to stay tuned to us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches. I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. We've been talking about how the New York City Council has decided to move forward on banning or passing a bill to ban solitary confinements in city jails. And this is a game-changing piece of legislation, as we've been checking in with my sister Suzette Speaks, as we're looking at this whole situation, and more importantly, the implications of this piece of legislation on the conversation about the purpose of prison. And I think that's part of this process, right? Like, we're talking about solitary confinement, that little space, or that space where back in the day, years ago, solitary confinement was almost like a living death sentence because you were locked down by yourself. I've heard some
in the dark,
the dark for like 20 plus hours a day. Very little interaction with people, very little time outside. But now, after research has been done, and there have been a number of cases where those who come out of solitary confinement end up being very challenged to reintegrate themselves back into society. And I just kind of mentioned 16-year-old Khalif Browder. They did a whole documentary on him. 16 years old, he went to prison, to Rikers. He went there, he was
as
there
a
for
baby.
3 years. As a baby, 16. He was there for 3 years. Half of his time was spent in solitary confinement.
To protect him, remember, because they were saying because he was underage. But keep going, yeah.
He was underage. But look, going back to what Mr. Jermaine Williams, the New York City human rights advocate, said, the psychological toll of being in that space, and this is years ago, so there wasn't no conversation about 4 hours out and 14 hours. There was no conversation. Imagine you being 16 years old and you locked down in a space in the dark by yourself for that period of time. Now, Khalif Browder was waiting for a trial to happen. That didn't happen, but he was still able to be free, but his mind wasn't right ever again. He ended up killing himself at the young age of 22 years old. And this is another effect of that, of being in that space. So, when we talk about this, and I know that people say that prison is supposed to change you, supposed to make you better. But there has
to be. Everybody believe that, Farajii? Does everybody believe that? That's a whole argument about what we believe.
Is
it reformatory? Is it supposed to be reforming?
Yeah.
I mean, I've learned in law school that obviously some of it is obviously a punishment, right? We just talked about punitive damages, and those go to the excessive and the gross negligence of somebody and teaching them a lesson, etc. There's different philosophies I think people have, but one of them we have to really highlight is to whether people should be allowed to go into the criminal justice system or the prison system and serve their time and be safe and not be subject to abuse, not be subject to cruel and unusual punishment, or even what the UN is calling, in this case, solitary confinement, has been defined by many experts as a form of torture. And whether or not we believe people who are serving their time incarcerated still retain their humanity and should be protected from additional violations and physical and mental and emotional abuse. When we look at some of the cases that, like you have just pointed out, a 16-year-old for almost 3 years, majority of his time was placed in solitary confinement. And to look at, so many other cases that are out there that talk about how it is just a debilitating psychological torture, doesn't even give it the power that it will have, because we know that human beings are social creatures. We know that we need sunlight and daylight and a window and things that just allow us to again remain human. But there's this idea that some have about what people who are incarcerated should or should not be subject to, and whether or not they have a right to sue even these entities for the type of treatment they are subject to while they are serving their time. And I'm not sure if everybody has the same sentiment, Farajii, about people getting better. We used to have, college programs and degrees.
Yeah. I mean, some prisons still do that though.
Programs and all kinds of stuff, because a lot of things, when we see people recidivate and go back into the system, there's often substance abuse issues, right? Alcohol addiction, substance abuse addiction. There's mental health challenges that are unaddressed. There is economic challenges that are unaddressed. So that whole philosophy around what we should be doing with people who are incarcerated. Remember, the United States proportionately has more of its citizens incarcerated. The amount of women, I wish I had my statistics open about how many more women are now serving in our prisons here. We have to have a real conversation about what we think the mission of our criminal justice system is.
And I agree with that. And I used to do ministry work in the state of Maryland, in some of those facilities, the correctional facilities in Hagerstown and in Jessup, right further out in the state of Maryland. And a lot of those brothers, when I talk to those brothers, they took advantage of all of those programs that were there, whether it was the religious services, whether it was the college programs, whether it was, how to get your family, build, reestablish good family relationships and all of those things. I think it depends on where you are. Some prisons are well managed than others, right? The wardens understand. Some wardens understand that this is going to be an opportunity for you to reform, for you to not just serve your time, but let time serve you in rebuilding yourself. But then you got others who throw you in some hole, right?
Burn you alive in a hot shower in Florida. We got to take a break, Farajii.
So it's all of that. It is definitely all of that. Look, it's going to be interesting to see how this whole situation play out. So we got to take another pause. When we come back, more conversation with that. Plus, I got to get Suzette's take on the story I saw about a 2-year-old down in Florida. And Florida's always a hot place for something to happen racially. I'm going to share with you this story about that, and possibly if we can get in a conversation about Taraji P. Henson. So stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Your money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Got my sister Suzette Speaks checking in as well, talking about this whole prison situation. I just want to take a couple of comments from the crew, Suzette, as people talked about prison. Conscious Thought said, remember people, incarceration is a cottage industry in the U.S., and as the revenue generated it is, do not expect legislators and their corporate backers to let it go without a fight. Make a lot of money is made off of prison.
Astute thought, yeah.
Yeah, definitely a lot of money. Let me see here. Who else is posting something? Janelle, my sister, you said the programs to rehab are defunded by those who would rather throw people away than work to get people back into society.
That's the whole thing. People have to come back. If I may share, Farajii, yesterday when I was out, I was invited by someone to host her event. Her event had canceled, and I don't think she would mind me sharing on this platform. She runs an organization called Families Rule, and it's familiesrule.org. And she asked me, so would you come host our Angel Tree giveaway? Because, you know, we are adopting families where one of the family members has been incarcerated. And when I got there, Farajii, she had a list of 25 different families where at least one parent was incarcerated. So this was a celebration for caregivers. We served meal. We had the children make cards, Christmas cards for the incarcerated parent. You know, they did a paint with the handprint and wrote a message to mom or dad. And we gave gifts, or just me being the host, you know, help the organization distribute the gifts that were given by donation on behalf of the parent that was incarcerated to the little ones. And I'm talking about babies that couldn't talk, toddlers, 2, 3, 4 years old, to teenagers who have to experience times like these, the holidays, without that loved one. I think we have to make sure we remember the humanity of those who are serving their time. They have done something where they have gotten, you know, convicted of breaking the law. Yes. There is a requirement for punishment. Yes. But making sure we don't forget that eventually, as you pointed out, you know, while they're there, the families serve time with them. Oftentimes, you know, they're losing jobs, their credit is getting messed up. There's all kinds of stuff, which are consequences for when you are violate the law, right? You are punished.
Right.
But we have to remember that they often, most often, will end up back in society. And we have to think about the type of people that we want to re-enter so that they can sustain themselves. I've been invited to be on a board right now, and this is so weird that we're talking about this with, you know, organizations that help people transition out. Because once you get out, if you've had a substance abuse problem, if you've had mental health issues, if they remain unaddressed, you're going back.
Yeah.
So it's like,
yeah, that's a great point.
And again, are we trying to both punish, you know, as well as reform? That is a question that we must ask ourselves. But we have to also remember these are human beings just like me and you. Anyone can make, you know, of course, I'm talking about like nonviolent offenders, mistakes, but we have to really think about how well our system equips people to come back into regular civilian life.
I couldn't agree with you more on this, Suzette. And I think that the issue about solitary confinement is, like in the case of Kalief Browder, when you have 16, 17-year-olds who simply make mistakes, right? And some of us, you know, when we're 16, 17, we can do some wild stuff. We could do some dumb stuff. I forget what even
he was charged with. Like,
right, it was something. Yeah, it was. I think it was like, and I have to take a look. And crew, if y'all want to pull that up, you know, please bring that to the conversation. But the point is just that we don't make it. You know, it's one thing to have to punish somebody, right? Like a real violent individual, and you punish them. But the unfortunate part about it is that because of white supremacy, because of implicit bias, because of all of these other things that's attached to how people see Black and brown people produce, and I'm using that because we're the ones mostly filling up the prisons, Black and brown folk. It's hard to figure out, oh, okay, this person deserves to be in that space versus this person doesn't deserve to be in that space. We don't make those decisions as people, as the citizens. So those decisions are the hard decisions. It's like, yeah, I mean, yeah, you want punishment, but you don't want to just break the human spirit of a 16-year-old all in the name of punishment, or break the human spirit of a 17-year-old, right? And I think that is the fine line. That is the problem. You know,
especially when they're nonviolent offenders, especially when they're
nonviolent offenders. You know what I'm saying? Like if you know, they said, like Corinna said, right, Kalief did not actually steal a backpack. So he didn't steal a backpack.
Yeah, thank you. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Corinna. And you know, he didn't steal a backpack, but he getting put in solitary confinement for a year and a half.
Like forgotten about, basically. No trial.
And then for a trial that never showed up, that never happened. How can we put our faith that this part of the quote unquote reform process is going to be administered in a just way. We can't.
That's why this unique law, or two sets of laws that the New York City Council is putting forth, could be, system changing, not only for the New York run prisons, but perhaps for other, municipalities that are looking on at a jail system and a prison system that large, and the effect that this may have if it is, if it takes place, if it's either signed by the mayor or vetoed, and then it is overturned by the council by their override. It is mind-boggling to think that it is, this controversial, but it is, because not everybody sees. And again, people who have worked in the system may argue quite differently than those of us who are looking at the results of who comes out of these systems, the complaints. Think about the taxpayer dollars that have been going out to, people who have been violated when in custody. It is a serious issue. And again, it doesn't come from the individuals and their paychecks out. We here in the state of Florida, state of New York, they all pay for it. So it's a very troubling, subject, solitary confinement. But you do have people who are on the side of, including in his comments, Mayor Adams, who are in support of it and maybe don't want to this degree, right, level of change to the system and not allowing police personnel to do what they've normally done. And he's, fully in support again of the corrections union and those who serve in the jails who are against it. But it would be revolutionary, Farajii, to limit this type of behavior, solitary to only 4 hours, and have 14 hours a day where detainees must be outside of their cell. And if the second piece passes, where New York police officers will be required to record all, or includes much more low-level interactions they're having with the public, to create a database to make sure that there are not officers that are out here. Again, we have so many that are doing the right thing, but there are any rogue officers that are abusing their power, that it can be documented. That's a big deal. So
that's
I don't
a huge deal.
Huge deal. But we'll see if either of these.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Look, when we come forward after we take this final pause, Suzette, I'm going to forego this one story about the 2-year-old, because I really want to hear your take on Farajii.
The 2-year-old. Okay. All right. We could. Okay.
Can we do that? Can we do that?
Yes. That's fine.
Because I know everybody talking about Farajii right now.
Yes, of course. Yes.
And it was heartbreaking to see our sister break down the way she did. You know what I mean? Talking about the struggle of Black actors and actresses and pay disparity, and how it almost got her to quit acting altogether. And I think that for a cultural moment, we're seeing a lot of things coming up more and more, where a lot of stuff about the arts and entertainment system, the Hollywood and music industry and all of that is starting to come out in full-fledged. And I want to kind of see, do we need to have some different conversations about where we place our skills and our talents, and the gifted ones that are in that space? Do we need to start to call for some sort of cultural revolution to get them out of that space, since we're not seeing the due justice? And I want to get your take on that as well. So stay with us, folks. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in Black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196. Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. In the final few moments, I wanted to get my sister's take on this conversation that is happening on social media that has gotten everybody involved. And this is the conversation around Taraji P. Henson, the Oscar-nominated and Oscar-winning actress who has been in a number of projects from both film and TV. How she recently, during an interview on Sirius Satellite Radio, broke down into tears talking about the struggle of being a Black actor and actress in Hollywood today, and you still have to prove your worth. And I want to mix and check in with our production team, Lise. If we have, just let me know if we got the video of that. But Taraji has pointed out something that about the pay disparity, Suzette, that has almost drove her to leave the profession altogether, to quit acting. And this was an emotional situation for her as she kind of talked to us a little bit about this situation. I want to play just a little bit. I want to play what she had to say as it relates to this issue. Check this out.
Thinking about stopping acting. We said, stop talking. Are you thinking about it?
I'm just tired of working so hard, being gracious at what I do, getting paid a fraction of the cost. I'm tired of hearing my sisters say the same thing over and over. You get tired. I hear people go, you work a lot. Well, have to. The math ain't mathing. And when you start working a lot, you know, you have a team. Big bills come with what we do. We don't do this alone. The fact that we're up is a whole entire team behind us.
Yes.
They have to get paid. So when you hear someone saying, oh, such.
We can come back in, Farajii, if it's.
Yeah, let's come back in. We're just having some technical issues, but I think that, you know, folks can understand when Farajii was saying big bills, the math ain't mathing, Suzette.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. When I saw this story last night on X, somebody had posted, well, she has $12 million. And I looked up the numbers and I was like, dude, that is her net worth altogether.
After all them years of working with all them big movies we know her for.
That's her net worth
Leonardo
altogether.
DiCaprio, what his money is like.
Let me tell you what his money is like, because I looked it up last night, Suzette. He's getting $30 million per film. He did a film on Netflix with Jennifer Lawrence, maybe like a year ago, 2 years ago. Jennifer Lawrence, she got paid $20 million for one film. Leonardo DiCaprio she got paid 25. He got paid 30 at the time. $30 million. So you have Leo DiCaprio that's getting money. Brad Pitt, someone who has worked alongside with Taraji P. Henson, getting money. The only black man that's up there that's still getting the big paycheck is Will Smith, where he can ask for $30 million of film. But for black actresses, and I saw Viola Davis repost this clip on her social media and saying this is what we have to deal with, right? This is the disparity. And, when you think about a person like a Taraji P. Henson, who has been in phenomenal films, blockbuster films, noteworthy films and projects. She put out she's putting out 2 projects this year. She put out the one where she was the voice of a character in Paw Patrol, and she's in Color Purple. And when you think about how much, I remember she made this point, Suzette. She said it took her a minute to even get paid $500,000. She wasn't first paid $500,000 until she did the film by Tyler Perry. And he was the first person that paid her what she asked for, $500,000. So big shout out to Tyler Perry, because he's always like coming into the gap and saying, all right, let me pay this person, let me pay that person. But she said she has to come back every time she does a film. She's Oscar nominated. She won an Oscar. She still has to see, as she said, start from the bottom in terms of negotiation. I mean, I'm
muting myself only because I got like a frog in my throat all of a sudden.
No, go ahead. Take care of your business. But it's crazy. And these are black actors, right? Like, we hailed them. I remember one of her coworkers, her colleagues, Terrence Howard. We know him from Empire. We've seen him in Best Man and all of those things. He's just filed a lawsuit against major talent agency CAA, right? Because the representatives he had from CAA also represented the producers of Empire when he was on that show. And at the height of Empire, he was only getting paid $325,000 an episode. To put this in context, Jerry Seinfeld, at the height of Seinfeld, got paid $1 million. Friends cast, at the height of Friends, got paid $1 million an episode. Charlie Sheen from 2.5 Men, when they were on air, he got paid $2 million an episode. So when we're talking about that pay disparity, especially when it comes to women and when it comes to black actors and actresses versus their white counterparts, the disparity is huge. It's wide.
Yeah, I think there are so many of us who watched it, especially within the black community and the black women in particular, who just was like, story of my life. Thank you for pointing out how much more overworked and underpaid we all are. What was so scary was to know that this woman is in Hollywood, and you can put almost any profession and switch it out from Oscar-winning actress and have us, whether we're in the C-suite, the boardroom, working class, doing our thing, classroom, wherever, and you would find it wouldn't be difficult to find a black woman or a black person with the same sentiment, that feeling of being unseen. I've seen, thank you, Lord, for Oprah and Color Purple. At first I was like, do we really need to remake? Hear me out. The classic was just so in its own league. I haven't seen the remake yet, so I'm not going to comment on it. I'm going to go see it Christmas. But to look at it, I think now I have much more respect for the remake, because I'm like, gosh, thank you, Oprah, for giving black women the opportunity to be seen, to be paid well, to be acknowledged for their brilliance and their excellence in their art and in their craft. It frightens me to know that someone as talented as her, really feels so diminished by the underpayment, the being pushed aside and probably being overlooked in so many ways, and being made to accept what you are, non-deserving of. You deserve so much more, and how that plays on your psyche. And she talks about in that interview, not only did she go into to kind of give it a quick synopsis, she's crying as she sits there on the Sirius XM platform, speaking to Gayle King, talking about how she feels like she has failed the generation of actresses coming after her, because she's like, if I haven't made a dent, again, looking at her body of work and how amazing she is, and I can't demand the big bucks like you just talked about, how the heck is the next actress coming after me feeling as if she also should, put a proper value to, the work that she's offering and the residuals thereafter. That's what they live off of. When in that interview, she talks about how 10 million for a movie job is not 10 million, because first Uncle Sam's going to come get the first half of that, 50% most likely in taxes. And then your staff, you literally are not an entity unto yourself when you're at that level that she's at. You have a team. You paying that team probably 30% of, not the net, of the gross before Uncle Sam. And then you look at the check and then there's no check. And you've put on all this work and you're on the world tour promoting the movie, but your bank account is far slimmer than your counterparts. And it shows that no matter what industry you're in the United States, we have this problem in pay disparity, not only among Black people versus our counterparts, but women in particular, Black women in specific. This is something that is plaguing us. And if it's in Hollywood and we're finally able to, magnify it, I think we've kind of known that this was an issue, but everybody, you're a superstar. You still get paid 10 million, but that's really like less than 1 or wherever it ends up after you have all of these expenses as your team requires. And again, the people who help you get to where you are professionally. So it is very frightening, very disheartening. Again, I think so many people watched her. There's some good interviews. Now I watched one this morning with Fantasia talking about how she's felt unseen. Fantasia! And how she sang her heart out on Broadway and couldn't buy a pizza when she got back to her hotel room at night. Ended up, after playing Celia on Broadway, with 2 tumors on her vocal cords, had to get them surgically removed. But at what cost? And she said, again, I do it for the art. For every woman who's felt like they've never been seen. For all the, the character offered her a lot that she worked with from what she was even going through in her own life. So she even said she had, Fantasia Barrino said she had trepidation coming back to the role, because she's like, there's a lot of heavy lifting, right, spiritually, emotionally, to relive these characters and things that kind of go, between you, the person, and you, the character. It's heavy, but she's grateful she's done it. And again, thank you to Oprah for offering her a platform, and all of them a platform to be seen. Again, we know they're just as talented. We know they bring box office numbers in. The pay would be commiserate and therefore justifiable with what they have proven in the past. But instead, in her 50s, and as a seasoned actress, she is still fighting. And that says a lot about this kind of broken. And I heard what you're saying, what you said in the intro about, are we misplacing our gifts? I mean, we need people in the arts because the arts are so
I agree with that. Yeah.
Representation. And some people, that's your gifting. You are the griot. You are the storyteller. You do through music what others cannot do. You are, that is a gift, and it should be honored.
And here's the only
me too this.
And look, here's the thing I'm saying with the cultural revolution piece is that we, as the consumers of their art, we have to support them, right? Like if they're in projects, like you got Color Purple coming out, right? Like being supportive. And I think that is part of, when we saw the actors strike, this was part of the conversation. This was a huge part of the conversation with actors going on strike, especially with Black performers who say, like, look, I'm putting out noteworthy quality work and I'm getting crumbs. And
we had Billy Porter say he had lost his house. We had people. It's crazy. He said he got 7 cents residuals from Pose. That's like A check
Hey,
in
look,
the
hey,
mail.
look, let me throw that. Hustle and Flow with Terrence Howard. Y'all remember the show, the movie Hustle and Flow. That man has said that he only got paid for that movie that was Oscar nominated for that role, $12,000.
That's crazy.
Now, this was in the early 2000s, right? This is like 2006 or something like that, 2007. $12,000 for a full feature-length film. $12,000. That man said, I couldn't even figure out how to pay my bills.
As the star.
As the star of Hustling. So everybody
But it
remember.
shows that Hollywood is not exempt from the same type of implicit bias. Some people would say overt racism and pay inequity, pay disparity when it comes to Black actors. And they have to be much more vocal about it. I know we're almost out of time.
Yeah, we're almost out of time. Let me just put this. Even in the music context, I saw this recently where Snoop Dogg talked about his music. He said that he was informed by Spotify that he had over 1 billion streams. And he got $45,000. Now, for us, that might be like, oh man, they got $45,000. But if you're an artist who put in this work, you're putting in this work.
That's crazy.
You see what I'm saying? So I think we're at a crossroads in terms of Black artistry in this country, right? Like, and we certainly don't have the time to go into detail right at this moment. But the fact is that we have all of this talent, we have all of these gifts, we have all of these wonderful artists that are pushing the culture, telling our stories, talking about our struggles, the ups and downs, and the whole nine. And they're not getting paid what they're worth. But I'm going back to Farajii. I'm looking at Viola. I'm looking at Angela Bassett. I'm looking at all of these women who are putting out quality work. And when this sister, Farajii, put this out there, when it was put out here yesterday, I mean, I saw so many people, so many of those Black women reposting, saying this is the problem. This has been an ongoing problem. And I'm not sure, to be honest with you, Suzette, how we should handle this as consumers of this media. But I think that it's important for us to understand, like, we do need to support Black artistry. You know, we got major movies coming out. We got the
This is so much more than we can handle. I see our producer Elise in the back says, except for Kevin Hart, Will Smith, Jamie Foxx, Oprah, Dwayne Johnson, we don't see the numbers reflected as far as the talent and what comparatively they should have alongside the same, being in the industry at the same time, the same type of movies, the same type of financial success of movies. They're not getting paid the same. And Lisa's question, I know we can't talk about it here because we're out of time, says, maybe they should have push harder, which I think Oprah is doing through The Color Purple. That's why I'm like, well, maybe there was a whole nother purpose for her to do this, or in addition to why she wants to bring it to a new generation. Maybe they should push it on behalf of their counterparts, something that we're going to have to pick up next time.
And we're going to have to pick up and see it. Look, Suzette, my sister, I appreciate you. Even if you come on a Thursday, I got love for you. But I thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, look, make sure y'all follow Suzette on all social media platforms. Make sure y'all check her out on her show, The Suzette Speaks Show. Make sure y'all support her on Pantheon and other platforms. But she comes here every week on Wednesdays and sometimes Thursdays here on The Culture to provide her legal expertise, her political expertise, and most importantly, her cultural insight. That's so good for the culture. Suzette, my sister, thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope you have a great holiday, great Christmas, and look forward to reconnecting with you next week, possibly.
Yes, sir. See you then. Thanks, everybody.
Talk to you. All right, bye-bye. All right, folks. We're going to continue the conversation about Farajii because I don't want to leave my sister out there, especially since she got my name. But I want to make sure that Black actors and actresses understand, like, we need to support them. And we're going to do our best here on The Culture to continue to support the culture in that regard. So that conversation will certainly be continued. Folks, make sure y'all do your due diligence to support us here at Black Star Network. I want to thank Suzette. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank my dynamic production team of Lisa and Keenan and Maddie and Chris. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Make sure y'all go to our website today, blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app for free. Follow us on social media. And of course, your financial donation and investment is certainly appreciated because that's what we need to continue to keep these conversations going. Stay tuned. Up next, 6 p.m. Eastern Time is Roland Martin Unfiltered. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here, exclusively here on the Black Star Network. Talk to you soon. Peace.